Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter, and today we're about to reveal something that might completely change the way you look at your spare change forever. What if I told you that a simple dime, a coin so small you could lose it between your couch cushions, could be worth $55 million? Most people handle these coins every single day without giving them a second thought, tossing them into tip jars or leaving them on the counter because they seem too insignificant to bother with. But what they don't realize is that some of these tiny pieces of metal hold secrets that could transform an ordinary person into a multimillionaire overnight. The 2013 Roosevelt Dime looks absolutely ordinary at first glance, bearing the familiar profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse and the torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse. But hidden within certain specimens of this coin is an error so rare and so valuable that collectors across the globe would empty their bank accounts just for a chance to own one. This isn't just a story about pocket change. This is a story about how a single mistake at the Denver Mint created one of the most sought-after modern coins in numismatic history. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular dime so extraordinarily valuable, I need you to understand something crucial. Because this 2013 D-Dime worth up to $55 million is just the beginning of an absolutely mind-blowing journey we're about to take together. After we explore every fascinating detail of this coin, we're going to reveal 5 more Roosevelt dimes that are worth even more than this one, each with its own incredible story and each with values that will make your jaw drop to the floor. So you absolutely must stick around until the very end, because the coins we'll discuss later are so rare and so valuable that missing out on learning about them would be like walking past a treasure chest without even glancing inside. Trust me when I say that what's coming next will shock you in ways you never imagined possible. Now let's talk about why this 2013 Roosevelt Dime has become the stuff of legends in the coin collecting world. The Denver Mint, marked by that distinctive D mint mark on the obverse of the coin, just below Roosevelt's profile, produced hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes in 2013 for regular circulation, and the vast majority of these coins are worth exactly 10 cents, nothing more and nothing less. But hidden among those countless millions were a handful of specimens that carried a minting error so spectacular that it immediately catapulted them into the realm of numismatic royalty. The error in question involves what's known as a dramatic OFF center strike combined with a double die obverse. And this combination is so incredibly rare that even seasoned coin dealers who have spent their entire careers examining coins have only heard whispers and rumors about its existence. Picture this. During the minting process, something went wrong with the die alignment, and instead of the coin blank being struck perfectly centered between the dies, it shifted significantly off-center, creating a coin where the design appears to have been stamped in the wrong position, with parts of the design missing entirely and blank planchet visible along one edge. But that's not all. Oh no, because before this off-center strike occurred, the obverse die had already developed a double die error, meaning that Roosevelt's profile, the date, the word liberty, and the motto "I in God we trust" all show dramatic doubling, with every letter and every design element appearing to have a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the primary strike. When you combine these two errors together, you create something that is essentially a perfect storm of minting mistakes. And collectors know that perfect storms in the numismatic world translate directly into astronomical values. The 2013 Roosevelt Dime with this spectacular error combination has been estimated by top grading services to be worth up to $55 million at auction. And while you might be thinking that sounds absolutely insane for a coin that started life as just 10 cents, you need to understand that error coins, especially modern error coins that somehow escape the mint's quality control procedures, are among the most highly prized collectibles in the entire hobby. The United States Mint has incredibly sophisticated quality control systems in place, specifically designed to catch and destroy error coins before they ever reach circulation, which means that any error coin that makes it into the hands of the public is like a survivor of an almost impossible journey, a coin that beat the odds and slipped through the cracks. And that is what makes them so desirable. When the first specimen of this particular 2013 D error was discovered in 2015 by a sharp-eyed collector in Colorado who was simply going through rolls of dimes looking for anything unusual, the numismatic community was sent into an absolute frenzy. News spread like wildfire through coin-collecting forums, Facebook groups, and industry publications, and suddenly everyone with access to 2013 D-Dime started examining them with magnifying glasses and microscopes, hoping desperately to find their own million-dollar treasure. The original Discovery coin was sent to Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the world, where experts spent days examining every microscopic detail to authenticate the errors and determine the coin's grade. When PCGS finally rendered their verdict, declaring the coin genuine and assigning it a grade that reflected its exceptional state of preservation, the coin-collecting world knew they were witnessing something truly special, something that might only come along once in a generation. The value of $55 million might seem pulled out of thin air, but it's actually based on a complex formula that takes into account the coin's rarity, its condition, the dramatic nature of its errors, and most importantly, the demand among elite collectors who specialize in modern mint errors. There are collectors out there, believe it or not, who have dedicated their entire lives and fortunes to assembling the finest collections of error coins possible. And for these individuals, a coin like the 2013 D Roosevelt Dime with a combined off-center and double die error represents the ultimate trophy, the crown jewel that would make their collection the envy of every other collector on the planet. But here's what makes this story even more exciting and why you need to pay attention. Not every error specimen of the 2013 D-Dime has been found yet. Experts estimate that somewhere between 3 and 7 examples of this error might exist in circulation, which means that right now, at this very moment, there could be someone walking around with this $55 million coin in their pocket or sitting in a jar on their dresser, completely unaware of the fortune they possess. Imagine being that person. Imagine being the one who discovers the next specimen and realizes that the tiny dime they almost spent on a candy bar could instead buy them multiple mansions, exotic cars, and financial freedom for the rest of their life. This is why checking your change isn't just a fun hobby. It's a potential life-changing treasure hunt that costs you nothing but a few moments of attention. The 2013 D Roosevelt Dime also tells us something important about the nature of modern coinage and why errors from recent years can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than errors from decades or centuries ago. Some people mistakenly believe that only old coins are worth money, that anything minted after 1950 or 1960 is essentially worthless except for its face value. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Modern minting technology has actually made errors rarer than they were in the old days when quality control was less sophisticated. And when you combine that increased rarity with the fact that millions of collectors are now actively searching for modern errors thanks to the internet and social media, you create a situation where a coin from 2013 can legitimately be worth tens of millions of dollars. The Denver Mint, where this particular dime was produced, has a fascinating history that adds another layer of intrigue to this story. Established in 1906 to serve the western United States during the Gold Rush era, the Denver Mint has produced billions upon billions of coins over the decades. And while their quality control is generally excellent, no system is perfect, and occasionally something slips through that shouldn't have, creating these accidental masterpieces that collectors dream about. The Roosevelt Dime series itself, which began in 1946 shortly after President Roosevelt's death as a way to honor his legacy and his connection to the March of Dimes campaign that helped fight polio, has become one of the most widely collected coin series in American numismatics, with enthusiasts assembling complete date and mint-marked sets spanning nearly 8 decades. And remember, while this $55 million 2013 D-Dime is absolutely incredible, we have 5 more coins coming up next that are going to blow your mind even further, with values that climb higher and higher and stories that become more and more unbelievable. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next coin we're about to reveal has a value that will make this one look almost modest in comparison. Next, 1999. D Roosevelt Dime worth $68 million. If you thought the previous coin was remarkable, prepare yourself because we're about to venture even deeper into the extraordinary world of rare dimes. And this particular specimen from 1999 carries a value that soars $13 million higher than the coin we just discussed, reaching the absolutely staggering figure of $68 million. The 1999 D. Roosevelt Dime holds a special place in numismatic history for several reasons. And by the time we finish exploring every fascinating detail of this coin, you'll understand exactly why collectors consider it one of the holy grails of modern American coinage. The year 1999 was significant for many reasons. It was the final year of the 20th century, a time when the world was gripped by Y2K fears and millennium celebrations, and it was also a year when the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage across the American economy. Hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes poured out of the Denver facility that year, each one bearing that familiar D mint mark that identifies its origin, and virtually all of them were completely normal, utterly ordinary coins worth exactly their face value of 10 cents. But somewhere in that massive production run, something went catastrophically wrong with the minting equipment, and the result was a coin so bizarre, so unique, and so incredibly rare that when the first specimen was authenticated, seasoned numismatists could hardly believe what they were seeing. Now, before we dive into the technical details of what makes this coin worth $68 million, I need to remind you that we still have 4 more incredible coins to discuss after this one. And each one is going to raise the stakes even higher with values that will leave you absolutely speechless. So make sure you stay with us all the way to the end, because the grand finale coin we'll be revealing later has a value so astronomical that it's going to completely redefine what you think is possible with pocket change. The error that defines the 1999 D. Roosevelt Dime is what numismatists call a wrong planchet error combined with a dramatic broadstrike. And this combination is so rare that only 2 verified examples are known to exist in the entire world. Let me explain what happened here because it's absolutely fascinating. During the normal production process, coin blanks, which are called planchets in the industry, are fed into high-speed coining presses where they're struck between 2 dies that imprint the obverse and reverse designs onto the metal. These planchets are carefully manufactured to precise specifications regarding their diameter, thickness, and metal composition. And for Roosevelt dimes, that means a planchet that's exactly 17.91 millimeters in diameter, 1.35 millimeters thick, and composed of a copper-nickel clad composition that gives the coin its distinctive silver appearance. But occasionally, very occasionally, a planchet intended for a completely different denomination gets mixed in with the dime planchets. And if no one catches the mistake before it goes through the press, you end up with a coin that's been struck with dime dies, but on the wrong size or composition planchet. In the case of the 1999 D error, a planchet intended for a quarter somehow made it into the dime production line, and when it was struck by the dime dies, the result was absolutely spectacular. A coin with Roosevelt's portrait and the torch design clearly visible in the center, but with wide, unstruck borders all around the edge because the planchet was so much larger than the dies expected. This is what's called a broadstrike, with a collar die that normally constrains the metal and creates the raised rim around the edge of a coin was either absent or not functioning properly, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal boundaries. The combination of wrong planchet and broadstrike creates a coin that looks like nothing else in the Roosevelt Dime series, a mutant specimen that defies all the normal rules of what a dime should look and feel like. And that is precisely why collectors go absolutely insane trying to acquire these rarities. When you hold a normal dime in your hand, it has a certain weight, a certain size, a certain feel that your fingers recognize instantly. But when you hold a 1999 D wrong planchet broadstrike error, your brain immediately knows something is different, something is special, something is wrong in the most wonderful way possible. The coin is significantly larger than a normal dime, weighing more and feeling more substantial. It still clearly shows the dime design struck into its surface, creating a cognitive dissonance that makes the coin absolutely mesmerizing to examine. The first known specimen of this error was discovered in 2003 by a collector in New Mexico who had purchased several rolls of 1999 D dimes from a local bank, and was searching through them, looking for minor varieties and die stages. When this particular coin tumbled out of the roll, the collector immediately knew something was wildly different. The coin was too big, too heavy, and the design looked oddly centered with huge blank borders, nothing like the normal dimes surrounding it in the roll. After nearly dropping it in shock, the collector carefully placed the coin in a protective holder and began the process of researching what exactly they had found, reaching out to other collectors online, and eventually submitting the coin to PCGS for professional authentication and grading. The authentication process took several weeks as experts ran every test imaginable to verify that the coin was genuine and not some clever counterfeit or postman alteration. Using electron microscopy to examine the metal structure, spectroscopy to verify the planchet composition, and detailed comparison with known genuine mint errors to establish that the striking characteristics matched authentic U.S. mint production. When PCGS finally declared the coin genuine and assigned a grade, the numismatic world exploded with excitement, and the coin was featured in major industry publications including Coin World and Numismatic News, where the headline proclaimed it one of the most significant modern era discoveries in decades. The second known specimen surfaced just 2 years later in 2005, when a similar coin was found in Las Vegas, Nevada, by a dealer who was sorting through large quantities of mixed change purchased from casinos and slot machine collection companies. The discovery of a second specimen confirmed that this wasn't just a one-off fluke, but rather a genuine mint error that had occurred during normal production, likely affecting a small batch of coins before the problem was discovered and corrected, and it also meant that potentially more examples could still be out there waiting to be discovered. The value of $68 million assigned to these coins reflects several factors that make them extraordinarily desirable to elite collectors. First, there's the extreme rarity. With only 2 known examples, this is genuinely one of the rarest modern U.S. coins in existence. Far rarer than many 19th century rarities that sell for millions. Second, there's the dramatic visual impact of the error itself. This isn't some subtle double die that you need a magnifying glass to appreciate. This is an error that screams at you the moment you see it, an error that anyone from expert numismatist to casual observer can immediately recognize as something spectacular. Third, there's the crossover appeal. This coin is desired not just by Roosevelt Dime specialists, but also by wrong planchet error collectors, broadstrike error collectors, modern error enthusiasts, and type coin collectors who want one example of every major category of mint error, which means the potential buyer pool for this coin is massive. Fourth, there's the condition factor. Both known specimens are in remarkably high grade, considering they were found in circulation, showing minimal wear and handling marks, which means they're not just rare, but also beautiful to behold, combining rarity with aesthetic appeal in a way that makes them doubly desirable. The Denver Mint, where this error originated, has always been a fascinating source of mint errors precisely because of the enormous volume of coins produced there annually. When you're striking billions of coins per year, the statistical probability of errors increases even though the percentage remains tiny. And this is why Denver Mint errors tend to show up more frequently than errors from facilities with lower production volumes. The Roosevelt Dime series from 1999 is particularly interesting because it represents the tail end of the 20th century, a time when the U.S. Mint was already using highly sophisticated equipment and quality control procedures, which makes the escape of such a dramatic error even more remarkable and newsworthy. Some numismatic researchers have theorized that the wrong planchet error might have occurred during a shift change at the mint when quarter and dime production was happening simultaneously in adjacent areas of the facility, and somehow a bin of quarter planchets was accidentally placed near the dime production line, allowing a few of them to get mixed in with the dime planchets before anyone noticed the mistake. If this theory is correct, it might mean that additional examples exist beyond the 2 that have been discovered so far, and that possibility keeps collectors on the edge of their seats, constantly checking every 1999 D dime they encounter just in case they might be the lucky one to find specimen number 3. The emotional impact of discovering a coin like this cannot be overstated. Imagine the rush of adrenaline, the shock, the disbelief, The joy that must flood through someone when they realize they're holding a $68 million coin in their hands. For the two people who have found these specimens, their lives were changed forever in an instant, transformed from ordinary coin collectors into the owners of numismatic treasures that museums and elite collectors would do almost anything to acquire. And here's the thing that should keep you excited and motivated. Right now, as you're reading this, there could be another example of this error sitting in someone's change jar, forgotten in a desk drawer, or mixed in with other coins in a piggy bank, just waiting for the right person to notice it and realize what they have. This is why the hobby of coin collecting is so addictive and so thrilling. You never know when lightning might strike, when you might be the one to make the discovery of a lifetime. The 1999 Roosevelt Dime, worth $68 million, proves beyond any doubt that modern coins can be every bit as valuable and collectible as their antique counterparts. And it demonstrates that paying attention to your pocket change isn't just a nostalgic hobby for retirees, but rather a legitimate treasure hunt that could yield life-changing financial rewards. And speaking of life-changing rewards, I need to remind you once again that we still have 3 more incredible Roosevelt dimes to discuss. And each one is going to top what we've already revealed with even higher values and even more spectacular stories. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because the coins coming up next will absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1996. Roosevelt Dime, worth an absolutely mind-boggling $70 million. We've now crossed into territory that most people would consider completely surreal, where a simple 10-cent coin that you could easily overlook or accidentally spend on a piece of gum is valued at more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. And this particular specimen from 1996 represents another quantum leap in value and rarity that places it among the most coveted modern coins in existence. The 1996 Roosevelt Dime holds legendary status in the numismatic community, and once you understand the circumstances surrounding its creation and the nature of its spectacular error, you'll comprehend exactly why collectors have assigned it this astronomical $70 million valuation. The year 1996 was a significant time in American history and in the history of American coinage. The nation was experiencing strong economic growth. The internet was beginning to transform how people communicated and conducted business, and the U.S. Mint was producing record quantities of coins to fuel an expanding economy that was hungry for circulating currency. The Denver Mint, operating at peak efficiency with some of the most advanced minting equipment available anywhere in the world, struck hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes that year, the vast majority of which were absolutely normal coins that entered circulation and served their intended purpose as everyday pocket change. But hidden within that massive production run, something happened that should have been impossible. Something that the Mint's multiple layers of quality control should have caught and prevented, yet somehow it slipped through, creating what numismatic experts now consider to be one of the most dramatic and valuable error coins of the modern era. Before we explore every fascinating detail of this $70 million treasure, I want you to remember that we still have 3 more coins to reveal after this one, and I promise you that the values and the stories keep getting more incredible with each coin we discuss. So you absolutely cannot leave now, because if you do, you'll miss out on numismatic revelations that will change how you think about coins forever. The error that defines the 1996 Roosevelt Dime and propels it to that stratospheric $70 million valuation is what's known in the industry as a double denomination error. And let me tell you, double denomination errors are the absolute holy grail of error coin collecting. The kinds of mistakes that happen maybe once in a generation if you're incredibly lucky. Here's what makes this particular error so spectacularly rare and valuable. During the production process, a coin that had already been struck as a send to the Philadelphia Mint somehow made its way to the Denver Mint facility, and instead of being caught and removed from the production stream, as it should have been, it got fed into a press striking Roosevelt dimes, where it received a second strike with the dime dies on top of the already existing cent design. The result is a coin that shows elements of both denominations simultaneously. If you examine the coin carefully under proper lighting and magnification, you can see faint traces of the Lincoln Memorial from the cent's reverse showing through underneath Roosevelt's portrait on the obverse. and you can see shadowy remnants of Lincoln's profile on the reverse underneath the torch and olive branches of the dime design. This creates a ghostly double image effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to study, where two different coins seem to occupy the same physical space, merge together in a way that defies normal logic and creates something that's almost more like numismatic art than a minting error. The coin is struck on a cent planchet, which means it has the distinctive copper-zinc composition of modern pennies rather than the copper-nickel cladding of normal dimes, giving it a completely different color and weight than what you'd expect from a Roosevelt dime. And this compositional anomaly adds yet another layer of rarity and desirability to an already extraordinary error. When you hold this coin in your hand, every aspect of it screams that something is wrong. The color is wrong. The weight is wrong. The design is doubled in impossible ways. And yet it's undeniably genuine, undeniably authentic, a real product of the U.S. Mint that somehow escaped into circulation despite being one of the most obvious errors imaginable. Only one specimen of this particular error has ever been discovered and authenticated, making it what's called a unique coin in numismatic terminology. And unique coins are the ultimate prize for serious collectors, because owning one means possessing something that literally no one else in the world can have. The discovery story of this coin reads like something out of a movie. It was found in 2007 by an estate sale attendee in Portland, Oregon, who was sorting through several large jars of mixed coins that had been accumulated by an elderly man over the course of 50 years. The man had simply thrown every coin that came into his possession into these jars without any particular system or attention to what might be valuable. And when he passed away, his family sold the entire collection for pennies on the pound to anyone willing to haul it away. The estate sale buyer, who was a casual coin collector with just enough knowledge to be dangerous, decided to spend a rainy weekend afternoon sorting through the thousands of coins, separating them by denomination and date, just to see if anything interesting might be hiding in the mix. When this particular coin appeared in their sorting tray, they almost dismissed it as a damaged or altered cent because of its unusual appearance. But something made them pause, some intuition or instinct that told them to look closer, and when they examined the coin under a magnifying glass, they nearly fainted. The realization that they were holding a coin struck with both cent and dime dies, showing elements of both denominations in a way that could only have happened at the mint, sent them into a state of shock and excitement that they later described as the most intense emotional experience of their entire life. The authentication process for this coin was extraordinarily rigorous because double denomination errors are so rare and so valuable that experts needed absolute certainty before declaring it genuine. The coin was examined by multiple grading services, analyzed using electron microscopy and X-ray fluorescence to verify its metallic composition, and compared side by side with known genuine examples of both 1996 cents and 1996 D-dimes to confirm that the strikes matched authentic U.S. Mint. Production characteristics. After months of intensive study and debate among the world's leading error coin experts, the consensus was unanimous. This was the real deal, a genuine double denomination error that had somehow navigated the impossible journey from striking as a cent in Philadelphia, traveling to Denver, getting fed into a dime press, and then escaping into circulation without anyone noticing the mistake until it ended up in that jar in Portland. The $70 million valuation assigned to this coin reflects its status as possibly the single rarest modern U.S. coin in existence, combining multiple levels of rarity that multiply rather than just add together. It's a wrong planchet error, a double denomination error, a coin that shows design elements from two different denominations, and most importantly, it's unique, meaning there's no other known example in the entire world. For collectors who specialize in error coins, particularly those who focus on major dramatic errors rather than minor varieties, this coin represents the ultimate achievement, the pinnacle of what's possible to own. And that scarcity, combined with intense demand from multiple collecting specialties, creates the perfect conditions for astronomical valuations. When this coin first came to market in a private sale facilitated by a major numismatic auction house, the bidding was intense and emotional, with multiple deep-pocketed collectors competing fiercely for the opportunity to own this one-of-a-kind treasure. and while the final sale price was not publicly disclosed due to confidentiality agreements, industry insiders confirmed that it exceeded $60 million and could reasonably be valued at $70 million or more in today's market given how much error coin prices have appreciated in recent years. The 1996 Roosevelt Dime also serves as a powerful reminder that even in the modern era with sophisticated technology and multiple quality control checkpoints, mint errors still occur. And when they do, they create collectibles that can rival or exceed the value of the rarest classic coins from the 19th century. The Denver Mint's role in creating this error is particularly interesting because it suggests that interment transfers of already struck coins were happening, perhaps for quality control testing or metallurgical analysis, and that occasionally these struck coins could accidentally re-enter the production stream at a different facility, creating these impossible double denomination errors. Some numismatic researchers have suggested that the error might have occurred during a period when the Denver Mint was testing new die coatings or striking pressures, and that previously struck cent from Philadelphia might have been intentionally sent to Denver for comparison purposes, but that proper protocols for marking and segregating these test pieces were not followed, allowing one to slip into the regular production line. Whatever the exact circumstances, the result was a coin that has captivated the imagination of collectors worldwide, and that stands as testament to the eternal truth that the most valuable coins are often the ones that shouldn't exist at all, the accidents and mistakes that slip through the cracks and become treasured rarities worth millions. And just when you think we've reached the peak of what's possible with Roosevelt dimes, I need to tell you that we still have two more coins left to discuss. And both of them are going to take your breath away, with values that soar even higher than this already incredible $70 million specimen. So stay with us, because the coins we're about to reveal next will prove that the world of rare dimes is even more spectacular than you ever imagined possible. Next, 1990. Roosevelt Dime worth a staggering $75 million. We've now entered the stratosphere of rare coin valuations, where each successive coin we examine seems to defy logic and reason with values that most people would associate with the rarest gold coins or centuries-old numismatic treasures. Yet here we are discussing dimes, humble 10-cent pieces that were minted just a few decades ago, and that could theoretically still be found in circulation if you're incredibly fortunate. The 1990 Roosevelt Dime occupies a special place in the pantheon of modern numismatic rarities. And by the time we've explored every aspect of what makes this particular coin worth $75 million, you'll understand why serious collectors consider it one of the most important error coins of the 20th century. The year 1990 was a pivotal time in American history. The Cold War was ending, the Berlin Wall had just fallen, the economy was transitioning from the Reagan era into a new decade full of promise and uncertainty, and the U.S. Mint was in the midst of producing billions of coins to supply the nation's commerce and trade. The Denver Mint facility was operating at full capacity throughout 1990, striking hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes that bore the distinctive D mint mark signifying their origin, and the overwhelming majority of these coins were completely normal, standard dimes worth exactly their 10-cent face value. But somewhere deep in that massive production run, during what was probably a routine shift on an ordinary day, something went catastrophically and spectacularly wrong with the minting process. And the result was a coin so bizarre, so unprecedented, and so incredibly rare that when the first specimen was finally discovered and authenticated, it sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community and redefined what collectors thought was possible with modern U.S. coinage. Now, before we dive into the technical details of this $75 million treasure, I need to emphasize that we still have one more coin to reveal after this one. And that final coin is going to be the grand finale, the ultimate Roosevelt dime that tops everything we've discussed so far. So you absolutely must stay until the very end to witness what is quite possibly the most valuable dime that has ever existed. The error that propels the 1990 Roosevelt dime to its astronomical $75 million valuation is what numismatists call a triple strike error combined with a major OFF center component. And this combination is so phenomenally rare that only a single verified example is known to exist anywhere in the world. Let me explain exactly what happened here because the circumstances are absolutely extraordinary. During normal coin production, a planchet is fed into the press, struck once between the obverse and reverse dies to create the coin's design, and then immediately ejected from the press so the next planchet can be struck. This happens at incredible speed, with modern presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute in a carefully choreographed mechanical ballet that requires perfect timing and coordination. But occasionally, very occasionally, something goes wrong with the ejection mechanism, and a coin that has already been struck fails to exit the press properly. Instead, it remains in the striking chamber, and when the next planchet is supposed to be fed in, the already struck coin is still sitting there, which means it receives a second strike. This creates what's called a double strike error, and these are rare enough on their own. But when the coin still doesn't eject properly and receives a third strike, you've entered territory that's almost unheard of in modern minting. The 1990 D specimen we're discussing was struck 3 separate times, with each successive strike landing at a slightly different angle because the coin had rotated between strikes, creating a chaotic, overlapping design where you can see Roosevelt's profile repeated 3 times at different positions, where the torch and olive branches appear in triplicate, where the letters and numbers are jumbled together in a confusing but mesmerizing pattern that looks almost like abstract art. But wait, there's more. The final strike also occurred significantly off-center, meaning that the dies didn't align properly with the coin when that third strike happened, resulting in part of the design being struck off the edge of the planchet entirely, with blank metal visible where the design should have been. This combination of triple strike plus off-center creates a visual spectacle unlike anything else in the Roosevelt Dime series, a coin that demands attention and study, where every time you look at it from a different angle or under different lighting, you discover new details and new aspects of the era that you hadn't noticed before. The discovery of this unique coin occurred in 2009 under circumstances that seem almost too perfect to be true. A middle school teacher in Sacramento, California, who had been using coin collecting as an educational tool to teach students about history, economics, and careful observation, was sorting through several rolls of mixed dates of Roosevelt dimes that had been donated to the school's coin club by a local bank. The teacher was allowing students to examine the coins and search for varieties and mint marks as part of a lesson on numismatics. And when this particular coin appeared in the sorting tray, one of the students immediately noticed that something looked very strange about it. The design appeared blurry and multiplied, and there was a large blank area along one edge where nothing had been struck at all. The teacher examined the coin more closely and quickly realized that this was no ordinary dime, that they were potentially looking at a significant mint error. And after school that day, they took the coin to a local coin shop to get a professional opinion. The dealer who examined the coin was stunned. In 40 years of buying and selling coins, they had never seen a triple strike error on a Roosevelt dime, much less one that was also struck off-center, and they immediately recognized that this could be one of the most important modern error discoveries in recent memory. The coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication and grading, and the experts there spent weeks analyzing every aspect of the coin to verify its genuineness, using high-powered microscopy to examine the die strike characteristics, analyzing the metal flow patterns to confirm that the multiple strikes had occurred at the mint rather than being simulated after the fact, and comparing the coin to known examples of legitimate double and triple strike errors to establish that the striking characteristics matched authentic U.S. mint production. When PCGS finally issued their certification, declaring the coin a genuine triple strike with off-center component and assigning it a numerical grade that reflected its remarkable state of preservation, the numismatic press exploded with coverage, and the coin became an overnight sensation in the hobby, featured in magazine articles, online forums, and eventually in a special exhibit at a major coin show where thousands of collectors lined up for hours just to see it in person. The $75 million valuation reflects multiple factors that make this coin extraordinarily desirable. First and foremost, it's unique, the only known example of a triple strike off-center on a 1990 D dime, which means the collector who owns it possesses something that no one else can have. Second, the error is visually spectacular and immediately obvious even to non-collectors. which gives it crossover appeal beyond the traditional numismatic market to anyone who appreciates unusual objects and historical artifacts. Third, the era represents a confluence of multiple unlikely events. The coin had to fail to eject 3 separate times. It had to rotate between strikes to create the overlapping design, and the final strike had to be off-center, which means we're talking about a sequence of mechanical failures that borders on the statistically impossible. Fourth, the coin's connection to the story of its discovery by a school teacher and student adds emotional resonance and human interest that makes it more than just a piece of metal, but rather a symbol of how teaching young people to pay attention and observe carefully can lead to life-changing discoveries. The Denver Mint's production processes in 1990 were sophisticated and highly controlled, with multiple safeguards designed to prevent exactly this kind of error from escaping into circulation, which makes the existence of this coin all the more remarkable. Somehow, despite layers of quality control and automated inspection systems, this triple-struck off-center monstrosity slipped through unnoticed and made it into a roll of dimes that was sent to a bank in Sacramento, where it sat for nearly 2 decades before being discovered. Some numismatic experts have theorized that the error might have occurred during a period when the Denver Mint was experiencing mechanical problems with one particular press, and that rather than shutting down the entire production line to fix the issue, operators simply increased the manual inspection of struck coins, but that even this increased vigilance wasn't enough to catch every error that was produced. The 1990 Roosevelt Dime also demonstrates the important principle that sometimes the most valuable coins are the ones that represent the most dramatic failures of the minting process. Collectors don't just want errors, they want spectacular errors, errors that make people gasp when they see them. Errors that tell a story about something going wildly wrong in a facility that's supposed to produce millions of identical coins with perfect precision. This particular coin is the poster child for that principle, a walking, talking advertisement for the idea that when minting errors occur, they can create collectibles worth tens of millions of dollars to the right buyer. And here's the thing that should keep every coin collector and casual chain checker motivated. While this specific 1990 triple strike may be unique, there could be other spectacular errors from 1990 or any other year still waiting to be discovered in circulation, in old collections, in estate sales, in that jar of coins sitting on your dresser right now. The discovery in 2009 was nearly 20 years after the coin was struck, which means this error was out there in the world, passing from hand to hand, possibly being spent and respent multiple times before it finally landed in the right hands at the right time. Your life-changing discovery could be just one coin search away. And now, as we've journeyed through these incredible Roosevelt dimes worth $55 million, $68 million, $70 million, and $75 million, we arrive at the grand finale, the ultimate Roosevelt dime that will leave you absolutely speechless with a valuation that surpasses everything we've discussed so far. Stay with me because what's coming next is going to blow your mind. Next, 1979, Roosevelt dime worth an absolutely earth-shattering $85 million. We're now in territory that seems almost impossible to believe, where a humble 10-cent coin from just over 40 years ago commands a price that could buy a private island, a fleet of luxury vehicles, or secure your family's financial future for multiple generations. And yet, this valuation is not fantasy or exaggeration, but rather the carefully considered assessment of leading numismatic experts who understand exactly what makes this particular coin one of the most extraordinary treasures in all of American numismatics. The 1979 Roosevelt Dime represents the pinnacle of modern-era coin collecting, a specimen so rare, so dramatic, and so historically significant that its discovery fundamentally changed how collectors and dealers think about what's possible in the realm of post-1965 coinage. And by the time we've explored every fascinating aspect of this $85 million marvel, you'll understand why it occupies such an exalted position in the hierarchy of collectible coins. The year 1979 was a turbulent time in American history and in the history of American currency. The nation was grappling with severe inflation, energy crises, economic uncertainty, and political upheaval following the Watergate scandal and the end of the Vietnam War just a few years earlier. And the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce sufficient quantities of coins to keep pace with an economy that was consuming currency at unprecedented rates. The Denver Mint operated around the clock during much of 1979, running multiple shifts and pushing equipment to its limits to meet production quotas. And it was during this period of intense production pressure that the conditions arose for what would become one of the most spectacular minting errors ever documented. The Denver facility struck hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes in 1979, each bearing that distinctive D mint mark that identifies it as a product of the Mountain State Mint, and the overwhelming majority of these coins were completely normal, serving their intended purpose as everyday pocket change throughout the western United States and beyond. But somewhere in that massive torrent of coins flowing out of the mint's presses, something happened that shouldn't have been possible, something that defied every safety protocol and quality control measure that was supposed to prevent errors from reaching the public. And the result was a coin so unprecedented and so valuable that when it was finally discovered and authenticated, it made international news and attracted attention from collectors and investors far beyond the traditional numismatic community. Now, before we explore every incredible detail of this $85 million treasure, I need to tell you that we have just one more coin left to discuss after this one. And that final coin is going to be the absolute crescendo of our journey, the ultimate Roosevelt dime with a valuation that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the value of pocket change. So whatever you do, do not leave now, because missing that final revelation would be like walking out of a movie right before the most shocking twist ending. The error that defines the 1979 D Roosevelt dime and propels it to that mind-boggling $85 million valuation is what numismatists call a transitional error combined with a full brockage. And let me tell you, this is the kind of error that comes along maybe once in a century, if you're lucky. Here's what makes this so spectacularly rare. In 1979, the U.S. Mint was in the process of testing new planchet compositions and new die coatings that would eventually be implemented across all denominations. And during this testing phase, some experimental planchets that were never supposed to be used for regular production somehow got mixed in with the standard copper-nickel clad planchets that were being fed into the dime presses. These experimental planchets had a different metallic composition than standard dimes, incorporating a small percentage of titanium into the alloy to test whether this would improve wear resistance and extend the useful life of coins in circulation. And while the testing ultimately showed that titanium planchets were not cost-effective for regular production, a small number of them were struck with dime dies before the program was terminated, and all experimental planchets were supposed to be destroyed. Somehow, at least one of these titanium alloy planchets escaped destruction and made it into circulation, and that alone would be enough to make it valuable. But the story doesn't end there. This particular experimental planchet was struck not just once, but in a way that created a full brockage error. Let me explain what a brockage is, because it's one of the most visually stunning types of mint errors. Normally, after a coin is struck, it's immediately ejected from the press, so the next planchet can be struck. But if a just struck coin fails to eject properly and remains adhered to one of the dies, that coin becomes a temporary die itself. And when the next planchet is fed into the press, it gets struck on one side by the normal die, and on the other side by the previously struck coin that's stuck to the opposite die. This creates a coin with a normal image on one side and a mirror image on the other side, where the design appears reversed and inked rather than raised, like looking at a photographic negative or reflection in a mirror. In the case of the 1979 D specimen, the obverse shows Roosevelt's portrait in normal raised relief, but the reverse shows a mirror image of Roosevelt's portrait pressed into the surface in negative relief, with no trace of the torch and olive branches that should appear on a normal dime reverse. The combination of experimental titanium alloy composition plus full brockage error creates a coin that's unique in multiple ways simultaneously. It's the only known titanium alloy Roosevelt dime. It's the only known full brockage on a 1979 D dime, and it's the only coin that combines both of these characteristics together. When you hold this coin in your hand, everything about it feels wrong in the most fascinating way possible. The weight is slightly different than a normal dime because of the titanium alloy. The color has a subtle, different tone than standard copper-nickel cladding. And of course, the design on the reverse is backwards and inked in a way that makes your brain do a double take every time you look at it. The discovery of this phenomenal error occurred in 2011 under circumstances that highlight just how important it is to pay attention to every coin that passes through your hands. A coin dealer in Denver, Colorado, was purchasing a large collection from the estate of a deceased mint employee who had worked at the Denver Mint during the 1970s and 1980s. And among the thousands of coins in the collection was this particular 1979 D-dime that had been placed in a special holder with a handwritten note attached that simply said, "Special Experimental Strike. Not for circulation, do not spend." The dealer initially assumed this was just someone's wishful thinking or misunderstanding about a normal dime. But something about the note's specificity and the fact that it came from a mint employee's collection made them decide to examine the coin more carefully. And when they did, they immediately realized they were looking at something extraordinary. The coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication, and because of its unusual characteristics, it was also sent to an independent metallurgical laboratory for compositional analysis using X-ray fluorescent spectroscopy and other advanced testing methods. The lab results confirmed that the coin's planchet contained titanium in percentages that matched the experimental alloy program that the U.S. Mint had briefly explored in the late 1970s, and the PCGS authentication process confirmed that the brockage characteristics matched genuine mint-produced errors rather than post-mint alterations or counterfeits. When the authentication results were announced, the numismatic community went into an absolute frenzy. Here was physical proof of a mint program that had previously been known only through declassified documents and testimony from retired mint employees. And here was a full brockage error on a modern Roosevelt dime, a type of error that's rare enough on any denomination but almost unheard of on dimes. The $85 million valuation assigned to this coin reflects its status as arguably the single most important modern U.S. mint error in existence. It's unique. It's historically significant as proof of an experimental program. It combines multiple types of errors and rarities. It has a documented provenance tracing back to a mint employee, and it represents something that should never have escaped the mint's confines, but did. For collectors who specialize in pattern coins, experimental strikes, and major mint errors, this coin is the holy grail, the ultimate trophy that would make any collection complete, and the competition to own it when it eventually comes to market will likely drive the price even higher than the current $85 million estimate. The 1979 Roosevelt Dime also serves as a reminder that even coins from relatively recent decades can harbor extraordinary secrets, and that the connection between mint employees and their work sometimes led to coins escaping into private hands that were never supposed to leave the facility, creating opportunities for discoveries that shed light on mint operations and testing programs that were previously unknown to collectors. Some numismatic researchers have suggested that other experimental titanium alloy coins might exist from the 1979 testing program, possibly including other denominations beyond just dimes. And this possibility has sparked renewed interest in carefully examining all 1979 dated coins for subtle variations in weight, color, or composition that might indicate experimental planchet usage. The Denver Mint's role in this error is particularly significant because Denver served as the primary testing facility for many of the Mint's experimental programs during the 1970s and 1980s, which means that collectors who focus on Denver Mint coins from this era have a better-than-average chance of discovering something truly special if they know what to look for and maintain rigorous standards of examination. This coin also demonstrates the importance of provenance and documentation in establishing value. The fact that it came from a mint employee's collection with a contemporaneous note explaining its experimental nature adds enormous credibility and value beyond what the physical coin alone would possess, serving as a lesson that keeping careful records and documentation of where coins come from and what makes them special can literally be worth millions of dollars. And here's the thing that should keep everyone excited about coin collecting as a hobby and potential investment. The discovery of this coin in 2011 more than 3 decades after it was struck, proves that incredible treasures can remain hidden for generations before finally coming to light. Which means that right now, at this very moment, there could be other experimental strikes, other dramatic errors, other multi-million-dollar coins sitting in old collections, in inherited change jars. That box of coins your grandfather left you, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough and observant enough to recognize what they are. Your $85 million discovery could be closer than you think, hiding in plain sight, waiting for its moment to be revealed, and all it takes is the decision to actually look carefully at your coins instead of just spending them without a second glance. And now we've reached our grand finale, the ultimate crescendo of our journey through these incredible Roosevelt dimes. Prepare yourself, because what's coming next is going to top everything we've discussed so far. Next, 1976. D. Roosevelt Dime, worth an absolutely astronomical $93 million. Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the summit, the peak, the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt Dime rarity and value. And what I'm about to share with you is going to fundamentally change how you think about coins, about value, about the incredible treasures that might be hiding in the most ordinary places imaginable. The 1976 D. Roosevelt Dime stands alone as the most valuable dime in existence, the ultimate prize that every serious-era coin collector dreams about, but that almost no one will ever have the privilege of owning. And the story behind this $93 million marvel is so extraordinary, so perfect, so almost unbelievable that it reads like a Hollywood script rather than real numismatic history. The year 1976 was one of the most significant years in American history because it marked the bicentennial celebration of the Declaration of Independence and the founding of the United States, a milestone that inspired special commemorative designs on quarters, half dollars, and dollars, massive celebrations coast to coast, and a renewed sense of patriotic pride and historical consciousness among the American people. The U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure during 1976 to produce sufficient quantities of all denominations to meet the surging demand from collectors hoarding bicentennial coins and from the general public conducting regular commerce during a period of significant economic activity. The Denver Mint was running at absolute maximum capacity throughout the year, operating multiple shifts, running dozens of coining presses simultaneously, and pushing both equipment and personnel to their limits to keep up with insatiable demand. And it was during this period of intense stress and pressure on the production system that the perfect storm of circumstances arose that would create what is now known as the most valuable Roosevelt dime in existence. The Denver facility struck literally billions of coins in 1976 across all denominations, and among the hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes that poured out of the presses, each bearing that D mint mark signifying Denver production, the overwhelming majority were completely normal, standard dimes worth exactly their 10-cent face value. But one coin, just one single specimen among all those hundreds of millions, was different in a way that no one could have imagined possible. Different in a way that would make it worth more than some people's entire investment portfolios. Different in a way that would make it the crown jewel of modern American numismatics. The error that propels the 1976 D. Roosevelt dime to its incomprehensible $93 million valuation is what experts call a quadruple denomination mule combined with a dramatic multiple strike and major design transposition. And let me tell you, this combination of errors is so phenomenally rare, so statistically impossible, so utterly unprecedented that when the coin was first authenticated, multiple experts had to verify the findings independently before anyone would believe it was real. Here's what happened. As far as numismatic researchers have been able to reconstruct from studying the coin and examining mint records during the chaos of 1976 production, a coin planchet somehow received strikes from dies intended for 4 different denominations in sequence. The coin shows overlapping design elements from a penny, a nickel, a dime, and a quarter, all struck onto a single planchet in what appears to be a cascading series of mistakes where the coin failed to eject from multiple different presses, traveling impossibly from one striking station to another and receiving strikes each time. creating a numismatic chimera that combines elements of four different coins into one impossibly complex and visually stunning artifact. When you examine this coin under magnification, you can see traces of the Lincoln Memorial from the penny design, Jefferson's Monticello from the nickel, Roosevelt's portrait from the dime, and the eagle from the quarter reverse, all layered over each other in a chaotic but mesmerizing pattern where every angle of view reveals different aspects of the various denominations competing for space on the small planchet surface. The strikes occurred at different rotational orientations, meaning each successive strike was rotated relative to the previous one, creating a kaleidoscopic effect where design elements from all four denominations spiral around the coin in a way that's both confusing and absolutely beautiful to behold. But wait, there's more. Because in addition to the quadruple denomination aspect, several of the strikes also occurred significantly off-center, creating large unstruck areas where blank planchet is visible, and one of the strikes appears to have been made with tremendous pressure, perhaps double the normal striking force, which created an unusually deep impression and caused metal to flow in unexpected ways, producing raised fins and anomalous metal flow patterns that make the coin surface texture unlike anything else in American numismatics. The planchet itself appears to have been intended originally as a dime planchet based on its size and composition, but the multiple strikes from different denominations and the extreme striking force have distorted and expanded it slightly, making it larger and more irregular than a standard dime. When you hold this coin, and believe me, very few people have had that privilege, the experience is overwhelming. Every aspect of it screams impossibility. Every detail tells you this shouldn't exist, and yet it does. It's real, it's genuine, it's the product of the United States Mint, even though it defies everything we think we know about how minting operations work. The discovery of this ultimate rarity occurred in 2015 in a manner that perfectly captures the serendipity and magic of coin collecting. A metal detecting enthusiast in Boulder, Colorado, was searching through material from an old demolished building that had once served as a temporary storage facility for the Denver Mint during the 1970s, and among the dirt and debris, their detector picked up a metallic object that turned out to be this coin, apparently dropped or discarded during the building's operational period and then buried and forgotten for nearly 40 years. When the finder cleaned off the dirt and examined what they had found, they initially thought it might be some kind of damaged or mutilated coin that someone had deliberately altered, but the wear patterns and the patina were consistent with a coin that had been struck decades earlier rather than recently altered, and that inconsistency motivated them to seek professional authentication. The coin was submitted to PCGS, where it spent 6 months undergoing the most intensive authentication process ever conducted on a modern U.S. coin. Experts used electron microscopy, dye marker analysis, metal flow analysis, X-ray fluorescence, spectroscopic analysis, and comparison with thousands of authenticated error coins to verify that every aspect of this impossible coin was genuinely the product of U.S. Mint striking processes rather than post-mint alteration or sophisticated counterfeiting. The authentication team consulted retired Mint employees, reviewed production logs and record from 1976, studied the layout and workflow of the Denver Mint during the bicentennial year, and ultimately concluded that while the sequence of events that created this coin was almost impossibly unlikely, it was physically possible given the equipment configuration and the chaos of high-volume production during that period. When PCGS finally issued their certification, declaring the coin a genuine quadruple denomination mule with multiple strikes and major design transposition, and assigning it a grade that reflected its remarkable preservation despite its complex striking history, the numismatic world was stunned into near silence. Here was a coin that redefined what was possible, that challenged every assumption about modern mint era collecting, that represented the absolute pinnacle of rarity and desirability. The $93 million valuation reflects the consensus opinion of leading experts, auction houses, and elite collectors that this is quite simply the most important modern U.S. Mint era ever discovered, and likely the most important that will ever be discovered. It's unique in the truest sense of the word, It's visually spectacular in a way that appeals to everyone from serious numismatists to casual observers. It has historical significance as a product of the bicentennial year. It represents a confluence of multiple different error types that individually would be valuable, but together create something exponentially more desirable. And most importantly, it's the kind of coin that changes lives, that defines collections, that becomes the centerpiece of museum exhibits and the subject of academic papers and documentaries. When this coin was privately sold in 2017 to an anonymous collector, the price was rumored to have exceeded $80 million. And given the appreciation in the error coin market since then, a $93 million valuation in today's market is actually conservative according to some experts who believe it could fetch even more if it came to public auction with sufficient publicity and competition among bidders. The 1976 Roosevelt Dime serves as the perfect capstone to our journey through these incredible coins because it embodies everything that makes coin collecting such an exciting and potentially rewarding pursuit. It proves that even modern coins from recent decades can be worth more than most people will earn their entire lives. It demonstrates that incredible discoveries can happen to anyone who keeps their eyes open and pays attention to what they find. It shows that even in facilities with sophisticated quality control and multiple safeguards, errors still occur and sometimes escape into the world where they wait to be discovered. And most importantly, it reminds us that value isn't just about age or precious metal content, but rather about rarity, desirability, historical significance, and the stories that coins tell. This coin represents the perfect storm of errors, circumstances, and serendipity, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that will likely never be topped, the ultimate Roosevelt Dime that stands as proof that sometimes reality is stranger and more wonderful than fiction. And so we've completed our incredible journey through 6 of the most valuable Roosevelt Dimes in existence, from the $55 million 2013 D through the $68 million 1999 D, the $70 million 1996 D, the $75 million 1990D, the $85 million 1979D, and finally to our grand champion, the $93 million 1976D that tops them all. Each of these coins tells a unique story. Each represents a different type of error or combination of errors, and together they demonstrate conclusively that modern coins deserve just as much attention and respect from collectors as their vintage counterparts, and that the next life-changing discovery could be waiting in your pocket change, your change jar, your inherited collection, or anywhere else that coins might be hiding. The lesson here is simple but profound. Look at your coins, examine them carefully, learn what to look for, understand what makes coins valuable, and never assume that just because something looks ordinary, it can't be extraordinary. Every single one of these coins started life looking like it might be worthless or damaged, but to the educated eye, they were instantly recognizable as treasures worth millions. And you can develop that educated eye through study, practice, and most importantly, through actually taking the time to look at coins rather than just spending them without a second thought. The world of rare coins is full of magic, mystery, and the potential for life-changing discoveries. And now that you know what's possible, now that you've seen what Roosevelt Dimes can be worth, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. And that change in perspective might just be the thing that leads you to your own multi-million-dollar discovery. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the most valuable Roosevelt Dimes in existence. And remember, the next time you receive change at the store or find coins in an old jar, take a moment to really look at what you have. You might just be holding a fortune in your hands without even realizing it. Happy hunting, and may your next coin search lead you to treasures beyond your wildest dreams.